Hey folks, welcome to What the hell are we called again?
Consuls of the people.
Welcome to Consuls of the People,
We're
everyone.
keeping that in.
We're keeping it. It's
there it is.
established.
That's the intro.
Boom. Enjoy. How more regular can you get?
Exactly. No prep. No script.
You want real voice of the people? Come here every week.
Every week. Very optimistic, but we'll try.
I'm going strong. I'm rooting for us.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we got this article from the New York Post, which we agreed was pretty serious, especially on the international scale, because it discusses President Biden's attitude about the Uyghur genocide in China. So I'm going to read it, and then we're going to discuss it. So let's do this. Published February 17th, 2021, by the lovely Emily Jacobs. Let me actually see if she's actually lovely. There's no picture. I feel stupid. But let's get started. So, title of the article is Biden dismisses Uyghur genocide as part of China's different norms, in quote. President Biden is dissing the genocide against the Uyghur population in China, dubbing the mass internment a different norm. Despite the State Department this month responding to, in quote, atrocities in the camps, following reports of systematic assault and torture.
So this
be
is
very careful with what words
yeah.
we use.
This is something that, so it's clear that the State Department recognizes this as something that's not very kosher, I guess we'll say. And, so, it's one thing when you dismiss something that's called a genocide because you don't think it's a genocide, or not because you don't think... Start over. It's one thing if you dismiss something that somebody has called a genocide if it's not widely recognized as happening. But the State Department is recognizing that this is going on.
Well, and I think that's the bigger issue here, especially, and again, I'm not into the conspiracies, and honestly, what Hunter Biden did in China is no one's business. He was a private citizen. Do I think it's a little inappropriate that the vice president at the time was escorting him around? Yes. But at the same time, it's his business. But I think this really reads more to this, coming from the right, opinion on Biden of him being soft to China. And we're already seeing a lot of this. Like, I feel he's done a lot of gestures made out to look like he's being tough on China. But, you know, calling genocide a different norm that's not okay.
And
that would be
sure,
like...
I'm sure the article gets more into what specifically he was talking about.
Well, let's continue. The commander-in-chief made remarks after being asked during his CNN town hall Tuesday evening about his recent conversations with his Chinese counterpart, starting his response by relaying Xi's justification for the abuses. We're off the flying colors already. If you know anything about Chinese history, it has always been the time when China has been victimized by the outer world is when they haven't been unified at home, Biden began. That's disturbingly ironic.
Hasn't China fractured half a dozen times because of internal conflicts?
Literally, I think it's like something like every 20... That's the whole idea with the Chinese empires, was the dynastic rule, how the climbing the mountain and then the dynasty would fall and a new dynasty would come in.
Yeah, like they unified internally without external influences, but I feel like a lot of the times they fractured was also due to internal issues.
Well, China's big issue...
That statement doesn't ring true to me. The one that we just read from Biden.
Well, the thing with China is... I've watched a lot of people like China, like this group that they discuss what's going on in China and Chinese history. And China went from being the world power, because if you think about this, the Crusades, remove the BS the Pope said about it being reclaiming the Holy Lands. The Crusades were strictly to take the Silk trade routes to China. And that's why countries like Egypt during Greek time was so important. It's to control that trade route to China, because China was the world superpower during the medieval ages and ancient times.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that controlling trade routes to India was also important.
Well, of course.
But
now,
like, the Silk Road was massively... Like, we talk about, like, we learn in school all these, like, superpowers. We think of Rome, we think of, like, ancient Greece, we think of the Ottomans, we think of, but, like...
We think Western world.
Right, but China was just as big as most of them long before any of them even existed.
But this is where we get into this, where China became isolationists, because what happened was, when the age of exploration happened, you saw countries like England, Portugal, France colonizing India and Africa and the New World, so no one needed China anymore. So China closed their gates while the rest of the world industrialized and moved forward. And then when Commodore Perry went to Japan, and then Japan went to China with the rest of the Western powers, China was now the weak country. We saw this with, like, the Opium Wars and the Boxer Rebellion. So by the time Communist China came around, they weren't only facing a domestic issue, international issue. They were facing an eternal issue, because they were literally, for the last 200 years, the whipping boy of the world. And they're like, F that, we were the... Wow, that's probably going to get us in trouble. But they were probably like, screw that, we were the superpower, we want to be the superpower again. And that's what's... I do believe that's what's pushing Xi Jinping in this direction. Because the thing is, China is not a communist government. The CCP might be called the Chinese Communist Party. There are more facets of fascism in the way the CCP rules than communism. Or Leninism, more so to speak, or Stalinism. They rule off a strong nationalism, because if you go to China and you ask someone, where are they? They're going to say, I'm Chinese, not I'm a communist.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I don't think anyone is arguing, or not anyone, I don't think most people are arguing that, like, Stalinist Russia wasn't communist, and it certainly displayed elements of, like, extra nationalism and fascism and whatnot. Maybe not fascism specifically, but, like, it displayed similar elements to that.
Yeah.
And probably even more so than China does now.
Well, Russia, you could literally debate saying Russia, the current Russian state under Vladimir Putin, is a fascist state.
No, there's no... Look, what happened with Putin's running, like, the opponent he was running against? Didn't he claim he was poisoned or something?
Oh no, he wasn't. He was.
Anyways,
he was poisoned.
I guess we're getting a bit off topic talking about Biden.
Russia.
Guess making an offhand remark about China's past that we maybe don't agree with.
Okay, well, so back to the article. So Biden began. So the central Xi Jinping is that there must be a united, tightly controlled China, and he uses this rationale for the things he does based on that. Now, I personally, and I feel like this is a much moderates as well as conservatives believe this, that is no excuse. In the United States, of course we're not a united people right now. Half the country wanted Trump, half the country wanted Biden. But at the same time, if your rationale for uniting your country is by genociding a quarter of the people, specifically in Xinjiang, that's literally like National Socialists saying, we need to unite Germany, we just need to get rid of these people to make that happen.
Yeah, and I'll say that the central principle, as he put it, that there must be a united, tightly controlled China, isn't in itself a bad idea necessarily, right? Like it's not
No, not
really
at all.
that sentiment is fine. It's just the fact that this is being said in relation to what's going on with China and what they're doing with the Uyghur people is kind of silly.
Well, exactly. And, you know, a lot of people make the Holocaust comparison with things. Like, when people were saying that Donald Trump was the new Hitler and stuff like that, that was very inappropriate, because if he was the next dictator, he was one of the worst dictators I've ever seen. Because I've never seen someone who's actually given power back to the people be a dictator. But this literally is the Holocaust, what's going on. They are going after not only a minority, a religious minority in their country, because they think they're a threat to them. And I think what's most upsetting about this is 8 years ago, we had all these celebrities and everyone who came out when people were like, oh, Islamic terror, you can't judge all Islamic people. But it's like, okay, where are you now when the Chinese government is doing this to these poor people in Xinjiang? These are Muslims. They are murdering these people. And that's my biggest issue here, especially because Joe Biden got the support of all the very same celebrities who, during the Obama administration, was angry when people were saying Islamic terrorism.
But re-education camps, I guess, important to these
unity.
Important to Chinese unity.
Alright, let's keep going. China, a nation that has faced a wave of international scrutiny over the past few years relating to its activities in dismantling democracy in Hong Kong, which we were threatened a few weeks ago, if we recall, from China about that, and its refusal to accept responsibility for negligence and a lack of transparency at the onset of the coronavirus outbreak, has not let global tensions stop its mass internment of Uyghurs in Xinjiang province. I point out to him, no American president can be sustained as a president if he doesn't reflect the values of the United States, the U.S. president continued. And so the idea is that I am not going to speak out against what he's doing in Hong Kong. What he's doing with the Uyghurs in western mountains of China and Taiwan, trying to end the one China policy by making it forceful. Z gets it.
Now that statement, to me, I want to interject there, feels so, like, it feels contradictory in and of itself. So he starts out by saying that no American president can be sustained as president if he doesn't reflect the values of the United States. And then he goes on to continue that he's not going to condemn what's going on in Hong Kong. A bit like, you're not going to support free speech, sure. What he's doing with the Uyghurs in the western mountains of China and Taiwan. Oh, okay. So what, are we going to go back to the U.S. principles of we're okay with internment camps? Because my impression was that, like, power to the people is more of an American value than than allowing China to do whatever they want with, freedom of religion. Nah, this isn't. Look. It's more important that we sustain our values as an American by not condemning this this blatant breach of the principle of freedom of religion.
Yeah, well, this is the issue. It's like he's making excuses for him. Like, Z gets it. Like, what, are you guys buddies? are you bros? Like, first of all, Taiwan, and this is what's crazy, Taiwan is an independent nation. China should have zero discussion on Taiwan.
Yeah, don't we as a country I know a lot of countries, particularly China, don't recognize Taiwan, and I know when we as a country have dealings with China that we do pretend like, oh yeah, China and Taiwan is one country, whatever. But don't we recognize Taiwan as its own independent country?
Yeah. Taiwan represented China on the Security Council until I think like 1980. Like, this is what makes me very uncomfortable and why I'm very upset with the Biden administration as of right now, because I'm looking and I have what's called the 6-month rule. I don't judge a president until 6 months, because I really can't condemn anything they're doing because they're just feeling the water on how everything's going. But stuff like this, it's like, dude, Taiwan and Hong Kong need us more than ever right now. And you're literally, it's literally like we were the knight in shining armor standing between these people and the dragon of China. And now we're like, okay, let's switch out the knight. Biden steps in as the new knight and goes, actually, you know what? Take him. And steps out of the way.
It was like Biden stepped in and was like, we're thinking, all right, maybe he'll stand up for like the Uyghurs and whatnot. And then he goes, you know what? Actually, I think the dragon has a really good point. Maybe he should eat these innocent civilians.
Exactly. And, you know, it really hurts, especially because I am a proud American, regardless who the president is. I think Teddy Roosevelt said, you should be proud being American, and it does not matter who the president is to be proud to be an American. But you know when it wasn't proud to be an American? In 1930 and 1940, when there were people fleeing here saying, please help us, this guy is going to kill us. And we were like, no, go back. You're overreacting, go away. And then in 1944 and 45, we found out, oh my god, he actually did what he said he was going to do. Like, and that's what hurts, is these people from Taiwan, these Uyghurs, these Hong Kongians are coming to us saying, please, please help us. These guys are going to kill us, please. And Biden he's like FDR. It's fine. He's not going to do it. It's okay. Nothing's going to happen. And that's what's upsetting about this most of all. It's appeasement.
Absolutely is. And then I guess the next quote is the where the title comes from.
Yeah. Culturally, there are different norms that each country and their leaders are expected to follow, he continued. The norms, in quote, in China, are shown in a recent BBC new expose, including systematic torture and assault occurring in the Uyghur concentration camps. Following the release of the BBC report, China banned the outlet in its territories.
So we have a lack of free speech, a violation of human rights, a violation of freedom of religion, which, sure, there is no freedom of religion in China, but, like, as an American, we obviously hold that as something that is important.
Do they have religion?
What was that?
Do they have religion? Like, I know Xi Jinping had all those monuments made to, like, Confucius and stuff, but do they have a religion?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that it's one, like you could say America is very much a Christian nation, but I don't know about.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
I would say
China's population, like, religious background.
I would say we're Abrahamic, because all the religions share, I guess, that level of Abraham in it, right?
Yeah. So Abrahamic, you've got Christianity, Judaism, Islam. Flip those around, because Islam is much bigger than Judaism. But
well, yeah. Well, it's kind of shocking too, because I feel like Judaism is a very, like, big religion. I feel like there are a lot of Jewish people in the world,
and that's your upbringing, where you're from, coming out there.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're so right.
Like, if you look at the population of, like, Jews across the U.S., it's just, like, New York metro area and, like, in around that area.
That's so true. That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, so, I love Jewish people. The bagels are great.
Oh, absolutely. They did Long Island good with those.
Seriously, you know what? Joke on the Germans. They not to make light of what happened, but they screwed up.
But to go back to our earlier point, I just briefly checked the numbers, and I don't know how accurate this is, but apparently the breakup is about half of the population is religiously unaffiliated, so what I would call probably atheist.
Agnostics, probably.
Yeah, probably. Chinese folk religion makes up about a fifth to a quarter of the population.
So it's probably like Buddhism and stuff?
No, Buddhism is separate, which makes up about which makes up about a fifth of the population as well.
Okay.
And then the Abrahamic religions make up about 7%.
Wow, that's actually a lot more than I was expecting.
Yeah, so that's largely unreligious compared to the rest of the world.
True. Well, but, back onto the article, though. The norms in China, that's insanity. Like, before we started this, we made a little bit of a comment, be like, that doesn't make it okay. Like, the norms in China being genocide, you could say the same thing. Oh, well, we actually didn't have the right to fight the Germans or do anything because Germany and Austria had histories of persecution of Jews, as did Russia. So that's just the norm. That's not how things work. Yeah, just because it was wrong back then.
We don't pass moral judgment on things based on whether or not it's normal.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, Shias and Sunni Muslims have always killed each other, so it's okay that they're still doing it. No, that's not how that works. Northern Irish and Protestant Irish and Catholic Irish hate each other. They've been killing each other. That's okay. It's normal. No, it's not normal or okay.
I mean, I guess normal it might be, but that's a problem.
Yeah, it shouldn't be normal.
Right. And this is... I'm honestly, when I heard about this, I was kind of shocked that he would, dismiss what's going on that, and the saddest thing is that he's not even you could have plausible deniability, maybe not plausible, but you could have some form of deniability if you went, oh, I don't think that's going on, right?
Oh, no, he's admitting he knows exactly what's happening.
That's happening, and it's not a problem?
Exactly, that's the issue here.
You as an American should know this is a major issue, like a major global issue, that this is happening.
Yeah, back to the comparison of America during the 30s and 40s, we didn't physically see what was going on. FDR and Truman were like, oh, well, he just wrote it in the book, that doesn't mean it's actually happening. But then when we saw what happened, we're like, oh my god. We have evidence what they're doing to the Uyghurs. We've seen the videos. We hear the testimonies. And Biden's like, oh, well, it's just the norm. It's fine. They can do what they want. It's like, dude, what? What are you talking about?
All right. So where are we at with this?
Asked during the town hall whether there would be a repercussion for the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, over the genocide, President Biden sidestepped the question, saying, the U.S. would reassert our role as spokespersons for human rights at the UN and other agencies. Well, there will be repercussions for China, and Xi knows that. What I'm doing is making clear that we, in fact, are going to continue to reassert our role as spokespersons for human rights at the UN and other agencies that have an impact on their attitude, he said. Asked if China was not already too powerful to be stopped from its appalling human rights practices, Biden expressed confidence that human rights would win the day. China is trying very hard to become the world leader, and to get that moniker and be able to do that, they have to gain the confidence of other countries. And as long as they are engaged in activities that is contrary to basic human rights, it's going to be hard for them to do that. But it's much more complicated than that. I shouldn't try to talk about China policy in 10 minutes on television here.
That's an interesting take, because it seems from those quotes, you would expect that he actually recognizes that this is a breach of human rights and is, I guess, I don't understand how, this is such a stark difference in attitude than, the quotes from earlier in the article.
It's literally like him. He's gaslighting. Honestly, he's just being like, he's literally like an abuse victim who keeps going back to the abuser.
So he says, I am not going to speak out against what he's doing in Hong Kong, what he's doing with the Uyghurs in western mountains of China and Taiwan, trying to end the one China policy by making it forceful. So he's saying that he's not going to condemn that, and then goes on to say that he will be a champion for human rights in the UN. How do you reconcile those two, like, those are two opposed beliefs? You can't do both.
And the worst part is, he mentions China wanting to be wanting to become the world leader, and not saying that's not going to happen because America is going to hold that. It's like, dude, you're pretty much accepting what China wants. And also, this whole world leader has to be contrary to basic human they have to respect human rights. Do we forget that the Soviet Union was a world leader at one point? Did they care about human rights?
Yeah, like, we won out at the end of the day, sure, but, like, the fact that we won out is considered to be such an important thing because we as a country care about human rights. It's not because, like, we didn't win out because we care about human rights. We won out, and the fact that we won out was good because we care about it.
Honestly, to me, and I don't know what your opinion is on this, but I'm sorry, I'm drinking water as we're doing this. This is showing me a groundwork on how he's going to handle foreign policy against a country like China, and it really concerns me that it's appeasement, especially because every day that passes, we see more Chinese soldiers setting up on the Indian border. We see more Chinese soldiers setting up on the Straits of Taiwan. And it's like, what's going to happen? Are we going to have this situation that they're going to say, oh, we want Taiwan? They're going to send soldiers in, and we're going to be like, oh, okay, just take it, it's fine. Or
just
when
don't
they
go any
invade
further.
India, yeah, is it going to be like, well, don't do that? They're going to be like, he's going to be like Mitch McConnell. Well, slow down a little bit. Like, what's it going to take? They're literally murdering people, and he's like, well, that's their business, not ours. If you're in public and you watch a man punch a woman in the face and then drag her off, are you going to sit there and be like, okay, well, I don't know what's going on? Or are you like, hey, what are you doing? And try to get in his face?
No, look. This is a norm within their household.
But exactly, though. Exactly.
Look, this is a norm within our household. Sure, I'll speak up against domestic violence, but it's, look, he's trying to be the patriarch of his house.
This is literally the most enabling thing I have ever seen a person say. Oh, it's okay. It's just how they view it. It's just how they view it. And what's even wilder to me is that Jen Psaki, the press secretary, cannot give a definitive answer on how the country is going to stand up against China. Because so far, by his statements in this, he's 100% ready for China to take over. And that's really concerning.
Oh, but actually, by his statements from this, he's expecting that there's no way that China does take over. Like, he's not even taking, it's less of a he's ready for them to do it, and more of a he's not taking the chance that the threat that they could try seriously.
They said there was no way the Germans could take Europe, but they did that within 3 months. So,
I mean, to be fair, they lost, but at great cost to everyone.
Yeah, they said there was no way that Russia and Germany in World War I would go to war with each other, and well, we saw what happened. They said the Titanic wouldn't sink either. But okay, so let's keep going. White House spokesperson could not immediately be reached by the Post for comment. During his confirmation hearings last month, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken concurred specifically with outgoing Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Wow, I just messed that up. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and identifying Chinese government's treatment of Uyghur Muslims is a genocide, and said that there's been a strong and long bipartisan commitment to Taiwan, and the commitment to Taiwan is something that we hold very strongly. Biden has not publicly acknowledged receiving congratulatory phone call from Taiwan's president.
Absolutely disgraceful.
Unreal. You know what? And you and me have discussed this before, because I'm much more George Washington in my opinions on how America should be with world affairs, and you are much more, we have to remain the way we are.
Yeah, I'm more of an interventionist than not.
And I wouldn't even say I'm really an isolationist, but I think we need to chill a bit.
Mm-hmm.
This, though, is like, dude, what are you if this is going to be his pace of our foreign affairs, he's practically building a bridge. That fleet we have in the Straits of Taiwan is pretty much a bridge for the Chinese army to march into Taiwan. I'm not going to say he did, but President Trump allowed Hong Kong to fall. He did nothing to stop it. And we're seeing this again. And it's, at least I could give the Trump administration, they recognized Taiwan. They supported Hong Kong with sanctions against China. They've been backing India. Freaking India. Trump's not even president anymore. They're still cheering him on. But, like, it's crazy to me. This man is the president of the United States of America, the beacon of freedom in the world. And it literally feels like he's was given talking points from the Chinese Communist Party to say what to say about the Uyghur situation. And that's very concerning to me.
All right. So I guess that's our that's that article
one
done. I don't have anything else to say on it.
All I gotta say, and last, and I probably know Biden won't hear this, but he probably should listen to someone, and if anyone close to the administration or anything hears this, tell him to get his stuff together, because he is the modern day Neville Chamberlain with how he's acting right now. And that's what I gotta say.
All right. So now
let's move over to your bad boy.
Over to the other article that I've got ready. I guess this is talking more domestic policy than foreign. So we have an article by Susan Millian, senior politics writer at U.S. News. Biden talks policy while Washington plays politics. In his first public trip as president, Biden traveled to Wisconsin to discuss the pandemic, policing, and education, while many in Washington remain focused on his predecessor. First and foremost, the lack of use of the Oxford comma in that segment frustrates me to no end.
Yeah, as a writer as well, that kind of annoys me. I was like, what?
Senior politics writer at Oxford comma. Use it, please. All right, in a more serious note, continuing though, Joe Biden is trying very hard to be president, while much of the rest of the political class is still fighting the race he already won. In his first such event of his presidency, Biden took questions at a network town hall Tuesday night and went full-on policy nerd and grandpa-in-chief, fielding questions on everything from getting a vaccine to not defunding the police to when and how to reopen schools. He rejected the idea of defunding the police, saying more money needed to be spent to have better community policing, including making sure people of color were not presumed to be criminals. He said public defenders should be paid the same as prosecutors, and talked about quashing prosecutorial discretion that leads to low-income black people getting talked into pleas because they can't afford good representation.
Okay, I'm gonna butt in here.
Yeah, that's the first big issue here.
First of all, this was a big thing that this was one of his big flip-flops during the campaign, because he went from one day being like, yeah, we need to reallocate money to other things, to, no, we need police. and that was because they said his polls were dropping. I also find this a little comical because he was the one who authored and helped pass the 94 crime bill that literally did everything that he says he wants to fight now.
Now, I will say I'm glad that he wound up on the with the decision of not wanting to defund the police. I think overall that's that he's taking this in I guess the direction that I would hope that he would take it in.
Absolutely.
I think the whole talk of defunding the police is kind of ridiculous. More funding, more resources will make it easier for the police to be able to deal with the things that they maybe don't deal with properly now.
Yeah, and we see this in Minneapolis, because if you just saw, I think they took $4 million away from their budget last year, but now they dumped $9.4 million into their budget to hire more cops, because crime has skyrocketed since their defunding efforts started. So I think that's kind of ironic. Also,
right, I saw an article the other day where they're planning to spend something like $6.4 million to recruit more police officers after they let a lot go.
Well, they quit. They didn't want to be there. But like this Grandpa in Chief line, I'm sorry, I don't like that.
I think that's the inner Susan Milligan's bias coming out. We can tell pretty easily what her opinion on Biden is.
Well, this goes back to what you and I talked about earlier about this whole like people saying the article talking about him having the fire and going to bed at 7:00. I don't want my president to be a grandpa. I want my president to be someone who's on the clock 24/7.
Right.
Like you saying Grandpa in Chief is like that. Is that supposed to make me feel comfortable? I wouldn't trust either of my grandpas as Commander in Chief.
Honestly, I would trust one of mine, but not right now.
Well, your grandpas are probably much more spry than mine. I have one grandpa whose knees are
this one is. He is 80, though.
I have one grandpa whose knees are glass, and then I have another grandpa who's 6 feet under.
Yeah, I've got one who's 6 feet under and one who is more in shape than I am. So there is that.
Okay, before we continue this, you need to get your life together. If your grandpa's in better shape than you.
No, the man like bike rides every day. He's crazy in shape for an 80-year-old.
Respect.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
But continuing with this article, he said all Americans will have access to a vaccine for COVID-19 by the end of July, though he cautioned at the CNN town hall that those vaccines might not be in everyone's arms by that date, and said K through 8 schools could be largely reopened in the end of his first 100 days.
Well, that's coming. That's coming.
That seems a little optimistic. I mean, I think at this point it's possible, but it does seem optimistic to me.
Well, the other thing is, with stuff like this with President Biden, is there is just so much miscommunication, because you had the CDC the other day saying schools can reopen right now with no problems, but then the White House said, no, that was just a personal opinion. That's not really happening. And then you had Fauci be like, no, they could open just right. And then he had to retract that the next day, which you want to talk about in-chief names? We should call Fauci retractor-in-chief, because the poor guy, I don't know what is happening to him, but it changes every other day. But this is where, from my point of view and the conservative side, the moderate, because again, I'm a moderate. I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but there's so much indecisiveness with every move, and the schools one is just the biggest I see right now, because it's like, can we open or can we not? Well, at the end of the 100 days, probably.
Yeah, and I think the idea is that everyone wants the schools reopened as soon as possible, but recognizes that that we don't know for sure when that's going to be a reasonable thing to have happen.
True. Well, if you look at places like Florida that have completely just reopened and they're like, screw it, as long as they're just following the mandates and everything, I think they have, only 28,000 dead now? Like, that's not bad.
But if I'm being honest, Florida is one of the last states I would trust when looking at their response to anything COVID related.
Well, you know what? I would usually agree with you, but they're flourishing. They are, I think, the most prosperous state right now. Their economy's booming. Their numbers are going down drastically. If I'm comparing Florida to New York or California, I'm gonna have to pick Florida 90% of the time. Like, you know, people are calling for Andrew Cuomo's impeachment, and Gavin Newsom is about to be the 5th governor of California recalled. I'm not saying Ron DeSantis is great. I'm just saying, if you're looking at public opinion.
So
let's keep going.
This next paragraph's a little morbid. When a second grader asked if she might get the coronavirus and die, Biden, full of honeys and other terms of endearment for the girl, assured her she was much less likely to get the virus because of her age. "I wouldn't worry about it, baby. I promise you," Biden said. "Don't be scared, honey. You're going to be fine."
That's kind of creepy. That's kind of creepy.
Weird, but whatever. In many ways...
I'm hearing him say it in my head. I said I'm hearing him say it in my head. And I'm like, he definitely wasn't like grandpa-ish about it. He was definitely like trying to sound cool.
He was probably trying to sound grandpa-ish about it.
But it came out really weird, probably.
So, in many ways, the event was a studied opposite of the sorts of events held by Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump. While the former president reveled in firing up a crowd, Biden spent the hour chatting in calming tones to the audience in Milwaukee, where he made his first domestic trip as president. He offered to stay afterwards to help a woman who was seeking a vaccine for her medically vulnerable son. He asked to get the address of a small business owner so he could explain more about how his hoped for $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package would help businesses that didn't have the high finance connections of multi-million-dollar corporations.
I'm going to be honest. That first one with the Trump thing, I think that's a little unfair because most of Trump didn't do town halls. Trump did rallies.
Right. Well, I mean, that in itself speaks to the difference in their demeanor. Trump did rallies. Well, Biden's doing a town hall. That that is just Trump liking to fire up crowds. So he would much rather do a rally if he wants to fire up a crowd.
True. And also, I feel discussing this 1.9 trillion thing, if you just say 1.9 trillion and relief, people are going to be like, yes, yes, yes. If you actually look at what's in that relief package, no. Like, this is the Washingtonian in me. Too much of this money is going outside America. It's like, we really need to take care of our own right now, especially states that have been crippled because of this virus.
Yeah, although I do think that it would be hard to get something that is like solely relief for the people to pass without also putting relief out for corporations. While I would agree that it might be better to get it out to the people, I don't know how politically feasible that is.
Well, this goes back to that these people, even in crisis, are looking out for themselves usually. Because that's what it is, and that's what's the disgusting part of it. I'm talking about you, Mitch. Talking about you. Turtle Man.
Biden would not promise when the nation would be back to normal, but said Christmas 2021 would be much different than last Christmas. It matters whether you continue to wear that mask, as well as socially distance and wash hands with hot water, Biden said. Talking like a grandparent or school nurse instructing kids. It matters. A young woman asked about crippling college debt and proposed forgiving the first $50,000 in debt, asking Biden how he could make that happen. I will not make that happen, Biden said. He went on about different circumstances, such as whether someone attends private or public school or does certain kinds of work to earn debt forgiveness. Community college should be free, Biden said, earning applause from the small, socially distant crowd.
I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here laughing because I know exactly how Biden said that. Because he's like, well, I will not make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, the idea to me seems a bit ridiculous. I mean, I'm open to the idea of canceling student debt, but anything that I've seen about it hasn't convinced me that it
needs to be
like
a right
an important
plan.
thing. Yeah. Like the problem isn't that people are taking on debt. The problem is that college is too expensive. So the community college should be free.
I agree with that personally.
I agree with that. Yeah, that is a good idea.
State.
Canceling student debt, though, people who take on, I myself have taken on a good deal of student debt.
Got paid off.
And while I would love for my student debt to get canceled, I don't necessarily think if that's something that like other people, like the tax dollars, should pay for. Like I agreed to the terms that I agreed to the terms of paying the money that I'm paying.
Well, and the other issue with this is I feel a lot of these people here cancel student debt, and they think that means all debt, but when they say cancel student debt, they only mean government.
Right,
the federal
loans. The federal loans.
The Pell grants and stuff. They're not talking about, like, private companies that give student debt.
That's complete, like,
and those...
I don't even know if they have legal authority to cancel
They don't.
that.
And the thing is, those are the ones that are crippling people. Because they're the ones with the big, like, what's it called? Oh my god.
They're not subsidized
yeah.
So, like,
they're not charging interest, the federal loans, as bad.
Right.
Whereas the private ones are the ones. So, canceling student debt, everyone hears that and goes, yes, yes, yes. They're only talking about the federal loans. The kids are thinking they mean all loans, but the government says, oh, we'll cancel the federal loans. But that's not where the majority of the loans are coming from.
Yeah, but all in all, I have to say, it's his opinion on that seems to match pretty closely to mine. Community college being free would be great, and massive loan canceling isn't a thing that is gonna happen.
It's not feasible, especially with all these other programs they're discussing. Especially the $15 thing, that's already, like we talked earlier, that's already in discussions that they're probably not going to do it because it's not feasible. Especially right now.
But while Biden tries to get lawmakers focused on critical issues at hand, dealing with the pandemic and ensuing dealing with the pandemic and ensuing financial fallout, Congress and party leaders around the country are still in a bitter fight. Having failed to get the supermajority of 67 votes in the Senate to convict Donald Trump, Democrats and their allies are not letting the matter go. Rep. Benny Thompson, Mississippi Democrat, filed the lawsuit in federal court on Tuesday, accusing Trump of conspiring with his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, as well as white supremacist groups the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers of conspiring to incite a riot at the Capitol.
I think that's ridiculous.
I mean, I'm not super knowledgeable on the Proud Boys, but are they a white supremacist group specifically?
They're the chairman of the Proud Boys is a Cuban African, Afro-Cuban.
Yeah,
the chairman.
My impression was that they were very conservative and maybe lean towards the what's it? Lean towards certain problematic views. But my understanding was that white supremacist wasn't one of them.
No, and even the same thing with the Oath Keepers. The Oath Keepers are just people who believe you need to literally follow the Constitution. I also think to say Trump and Rudy said, go storm the Capitol, the issue with his case is if it goes to court, and if you actually watch the impeachment, Michael Vanderdeer destroyed any case saying Trump did anything to cause the riot. Because if you actually look at how the votes went in the Senate, they were completely partisanly based. But
right.
There's literally no evidence that Trump was conspiring. Benny, in his actual case, made it out like Trump and Giuliani were in the war room being like, oh, we'll send these guys this way. The Oath Keepers will take the left flank. The Proud Boys will take the right. That's not what happened. Honestly, the Proud Boys were actually told not to show up at the Capitol. And we see this thing with John Sullivan, this Insurgents USA guy who got arrested. It wasn't just Trump supporters there. It was just chaos. It was anarchists, and they were the ones that got in. Everyone was crazy. To compare what happened to the Capitol to 9/11 too is insane. The only people killed were the Trump supporters, as we just found out that Officer Sicknick actually died of a unrelated stroke later that day. So, this case, in my eyes, really holds no weight.
Well,
and I think they need to stop
the
this
article
Trump
goes
war.
on to say, the lawsuit accuses the group of violating the 1871 Ku Klux Klan Act by using threats and intimidation to prevent members of Congress from exercising their duties. The NAACP filed the lawsuit on Thompson's behalf, and several other lawmakers are expected to join as plaintiffs. Now, I don't know what the Ku Klux Klan Act actually does.
It was actually Ulysses S. Grant passed the legislation.
So it says, using threats and intimidation to prevent members of Congress from exercising their duties. They might have a case on that one, actually.
Well, but the thing is, you need to prove intent. They need to prove Trump and Giuliani did this.
That's fair.
So that's why.
Oh, right, because, hold on. So the lawsuit's being filed against
Trump and Giuliani.
Okay, yeah, I see. So that'll be a hard case to prove then.
And also,
the
Ku Klux...
obviously this, I feel like this obviously happened where like members of Congress were prevented from exercising their duties through intimidation. But whether, like, I would argue that this could be Donald Trump's fault, but I don't know how easy it would be to prove his intent on that. So that's gonna be a messy case.
Do I think what was being said definitely inflamed people? Absolutely. But I could also go as far to say being locked up in their houses for 8 months inflamed people. I could say feeling like they were wronged inflamed people. And
right. So you might be able to prove
first of all,
you could probably prove the action, but maybe not the I don't know if this is the term, mens rea.
Yeah.
The guilty mind.
My thing is to compare this to the Ku Klux Klan Act. The Ku Klux Klan Act was actually, Grant made that a law because of African American senators and congressmen getting attacked and killed. That's not what happened. What happened was literally just the pot boiled over and everyone snapped. And
yeah,
but if you look at video,
like you could clearly call it intimidation, and
absolutely.
That probably falls under the Ku Klux Klan Act, even if it's less of an issue than what was happening that caused the Ku Klux Klan Act to get passed. It's definitely something that would be violating it. It's
agree,
just a matter
but
are Trump and Giuliani going to be
saying.
able to be legally responsible for it? We'll see. That's going to be,
like, you need to prove there was an intent. That's what you need to do. Is you need to prove there was an intent from Trump and Giuliani to do it, and as shown during the impeachment trial, there was zero intent for what happened. And that's why, and it's annoying because this is literally, I understand what happened was bad, and it definitely needs justice for what happened, but at the same time, we have a new president, we have a new Congress. Start fulfilling the promises you gave to your constituents, and stop milking this Trump truck for what you can get out of it. That's the way I'm seeing it. I think the people who stormed the Capitol all should be in prison, but we need to move forward and actually start helping people.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, the GOP is enmeshed in its own civil war. Two of the 7 Senate Republicans who voted to convict Trump, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana and Richard Burr of North Carolina, have been censured by their state parties for their votes. Censure proceedings are underway for Senator Ben Sass?
Sass. That's how you do it.
Of Nebraska, Senator Suzanne Collins of Maine, and Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania. We did not send him there to vote his conscience. We did not send him there to do the right thing or whatever he's doing, David Ball, chairman of the Washington County, Pennsylvania Republican Party, said of Toomey. Hold on, isn't his duty to vote how he thinks? Like, was he representing the state in that vote, or
yes?
Okay.
Well, that's the issue with the Senate. So the 17th Amendment was passed because Republicans thought they would pretty much always control the Senate and the popular vote, but that was also during the Taft-Roosevelt era, so things got messed up. But the way it was supposed to be was the Senate was supposed to represent the state, and the House was supposed to represent the specific constituents. So
right.
He's
so
not
I guess
totally wrong.
The problem that the I guess they're having with their vote is that they think that their state, I guess, would disagree with how they voted.
Well, yeah. So if the whole with Toomey, if he gets censured from the state, then that's them saying that's not how we wanted you to vote. Because the thing is, the Senate's not supposed to vote on personal beliefs. They're supposed to vote how the state votes. So that's the issue. And that's why the 17th Amendment, because originally the U.S. Senate, the 2 representatives were picked by the state assembly. But the 17th Amendment took that power away from the states. So that's the issue. And that's why I think they should amend the Constitution and get rid of that. Because that's been causing more problems than good.
The impact of the knuckle rapping is questionable. Toomey and Burr are retiring, while Cassidy, Collins, and Sass just won re-election to 6-year terms. But the censures show the influence Trump still has over his party even after his loss to Biden. Trump lashed out Tuesday against Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, blasting the Kentucky Republican for suggesting very strongly that Trump could or even should face criminal penalties for his role in the deadly riot.
Yeah,
Mitch
this is
quote.
Before you said this is crazy because McConnell acquitted. He voted for acquittal.
McConnell was one of the Trump's most avid supporters in the Senate when Trump was still in office.
Yeah,
Trump's
bizarre.
out, and then McConnell's like, "Oh, he could and should be indicted for this."
Well, he's one of these.
Oh, nice flip flop, McConnell.
He's a careerist.
Yeah, you.
I expect
turtle.
nothing less. you freaking turtle. I expect nothing less from Mitch McConnell.
Quote: Mitch is a dour, sullen, and unsmiling political hack, and if Republican senators are going to stay with him, they will not win again.
Oof.
Now that is a quote from Trump, and I'd just like to second that.
I honestly don't know many conservatives that actually like Mitch McConnell anymore.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, Mitch McConnell is only in his seat because Trump endorsed him. Because his election was super close. I think Donald Trump Jr. said he was gonna even if it's a Democrat going against McConnell next time, they're going to endorse the Democrat. I was like, I think that's the other big thing about this impeachment that they messed up is Trump is going to be a strong figure in the Republican Party for a while. So they either have to realize that, or they have to realize that they probably should start thinking about other sides. Personally, I think that's stupid, but that's how it is right now.
So Trump said it. Trump said when it was necessary and appropriate, he would bring back primary rivals to officials who were not in his favor. The threat, coming from a man who won a single election in a rant against a long-term party leader who won his first election in 1977 and every election since, is of questionable power. I mean, let's be real though, the man was president, and people really don't like Mitch McConnell right now. So, questionable power, maybe not. Honestly, I would not be surprised if Mitch McConnell gets,
this is
doesn't get reelected.
From Miss Milligan, President Biden's lover, who is, she's going to be a Lincoln Project sider too, which, the Lincoln Project's facing their own problems right now, so McConnell's trying to ride the wave, but he's riding into the wave and not with it.
McConnell eagerly advanced the parts of Trump's agenda that Republicans wanted, such as a massive tax cut and confirmation of conservative judges, but he was never among the Senate's ardent Trump loyalists, and after the Senate voted to acquit the former president, McConnell laid into him, saying the attackers did this because they had been fed wild falsehoods by the most powerful man on earth, because he was angry he'd lost an election. Biden, while lured into opportunities to castigate Trump, sought to change the topic, calling Trump, who commonly discussed himself in the third person, the former guy or the previous president. For 4 years, all that's been in the news is Trump, Biden said when asked about remarks House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, California Democrat, made about senators who voted to acquit Trump. For the next 4 years, Biden said, the conversation should be about the American people. I'm tired of talking about Trump, he said. And that's
Amen.
good. That's a good sentiment. I agree with that.
But I agree with that too, but the issue is Nancy Pelosi won't drop it. Because,
right.
like we said earlier...
At least it'll take a little while for her, I think.
Yeah, they need a boogeyman. And right now, other than Trump, who could be their boogeyman?
How about, China?
No, because as we saw earlier, Biden loves China.
No. But wouldn't it be great if they recognized the problems there and turned on to that? But alas, it isn't meant to be.
Well, you know what's even crazier about this? So you remember that big hack that happened a few months back, and the Democrats were like, oh, it's the Russians.
Yeah.
It ended up, it was China that did the hack. But then I just saw an article discussing the hack, and instead of saying the Chinese hack, it said the hack believed perpetrated by Russia, and that was it. And I'm like, why is there this need that everyone wants us to fight the Russians?
Well, the thing is, Russia is such an obviously,
evil.
Yeah, like it's so obviously anti-American. It's historically a country that has the closest ties of any to the USSR, America's biggest rival in years past. It's just obviously something that it's very easy for Americans to dislike Russia.
I agree, but if we're gonna say that, so's China. But
China isn't historically our biggest rival, right? Like China, sure, we've had problems with them in the past. We have problems with them now. But when you think about who was America's biggest rival in our rise to global power, it was the USSR. And sure, China had close ties with the USSR.
Very close.
But it's
until Khrushchev.
It's probably just like they don't Russia's just the first thing that comes to mind. So it's the thing they're gonna say the most.
I agree,
but all in all,
China needs to be.
Yeah, all in all, Biden seems, in my opinion, doing an okay job domestically. This is to ignore all the foreign policy issues we were talking about earlier. I don't have much of a problem with what was discussed in this article about his proceedings there.
I just still love well, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, well, that's not gonna happen.
I picture him saying it. I'm like,
oh no, I'm
he was
sorry.
Just abrupt.
I will not make that happen.
He's like, oh, that's not happening. My issue.
But yeah,
I there's a lot here I agree with. I agree with the free community college. I agree with ending this freaking Trump insanity. It's like, first of all, they never gave Trump a chance, and I think we can agree on that. But
yeah, I would argue that Trump maybe didn't deserve a chance, but they definitely didn't give him one.
Yeah, and he did do good things, like the Abraham Accords, the tax cuts. He did do very good things. But something that really makes me angry is this quote from McConnell. Did this because they had fed wild falsehoods from the most powerful man because he was angry he'd lost an election? I'm sorry, I don't want to sound like one of these other Republicans, but what was the first 3 years of the Trump administration but people like Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden himself saying it was a stolen election, the Russians stole the election? Like, isn't this very hypocritical?
Mitch McConnell, I think we've established, is one of the most hypocritical people on planet Earth.
Yeah, but I agree. But then you have people like Benny Thompson who are trying to bring this to trial, and it's like, you literally did the same thing. It's just, and they did riot. You and me watched Trump's inauguration. Remember?
Yep.
They said the Washington police did the Game of Thrones phalanx.
Yeah, I will say there are stark differences that merit different responses. But like there are similar themes for sure.
Yeah, and I'm very upset because a lot of the things like this Keystone Pipeline thing that took away jobs. We were promised these green jobs. Jen Psaki's been very combative with people asking that question. This winter vortex, like I told you before, in Texas and everything, this is like Trump's revenge. He shut down that pipeline and this thing came in out of nowhere. It was as if, like, nature was like, haha, gotcha. It just, I feel we need to stop with this freaking, and I agree with Biden on that, we need to stop with this Trump, but also, President Biden, you really need to start making some answers for things you're doing. Where is our $2,000 checks we were promised? Where is these jobs we were promised? Where are all these things that you said you were going to do in the first 100 days, and we're not seeing it probably going to happen for the first 365 days?
Well, I'll say time will tell on that, and we'll be able to we'll be able to talk about that in later I guess episodes. Is that what we're calling this?
I guess
later talks.
We'll
be able to talk about it. Biggest takeaway.
I think we need accountability.
Oh yeah. Biggest takeaway from this is honestly Biden's reaction to what's going on in China is a disaster. And the rest of what's going on with Biden seems to be pretty bog standard of what we expected.
Do you say bog standard?
I did say that.
That's hysterical. We're like 20-year-olds talking like 80-year-olds.
Oh man.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things we've been seeing with Biden, though, like in this article, it's a town hall, so he's gonna say a lot. Policy making. The question is, will he actually accomplish what he say he's gonna do? And
we shall see.
Time will tell. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us. And
we'll
I guess
see you
that's
next
about
time.
it.
All right.